All right. I think we're on CADAF TV, Eleonora. So welcome to CADAF TV. This is a new rebranding of the live stream, which I love, by the way. I always wanted to, be an, Italian anchor. So this is perfect. So I'm very happy, like joke aside, to be joined by Eleonora Brizi, with the curator and gallerist for owner of the gallery and founder. She does everything. And for Breezy Art Gallery, and we're going to talk about a little bit of her process, which is slightly different and very interesting from a gallery standpoint, and the artists that she curated for this show during a very weird period of time with COVID-19 and the unrest and everything. So without further ado, I'm going to let you introduce yourself before we show your gallery on CADAF, because I know you, we're good friends, and we've curated like exhibitions before together, but I really do think, if you don't mind, like sharing a little bit of your background with your art background and how you got into like crypto and arrived at the Breezy Art Gallery in Rome. So I think that's a great story.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for having me. I'm very happy to have this talk. So I am an art curator, and maybe someone would ask, like, if she's an art curator, why does she have a gallery? Actually, I got this just a few weeks ago. Like, if you're an art curator, you cannot be a gallerist. But maybe yes. I'm actually I'm not coming from an art background, meaning that like I studied Chinese and Chinese culture, but then going to China, I worked for many years for the artist Ai Weiwei. And so obviously I got in contact with the whole world of contemporary art. And so I was in China for 6 years. I worked for a curator. So we were working with many Chinese artists, but for me, it was still something that, like for me, it was Chinese art. And so it had to deal with Chinese culture, which is what I studied, and it was my passion. But then when I left China, which I didn't leave because I didn't like it anymore, but just because I am in constant movement. So I thought that I should go to the other side of the planet. So I landed to New York. I was like, I don't really like the world of contemporary art, if it's even not dealing with China anymore. I was in a big crisis. I never liked galleries ever. I never worked for a gallery. I didn't want to. I don't want to. So I don't know why I feel like I hope to do something different. And so I was in New York, and then I was in this big crisis, but then the blockchain like manifested, and I thought that there would be some hope for changing something in the art world. Obviously very romanticized, but I am this is my take on the blockchain. I saw it as a very like pure technology. Then going forward with the years, there are many problems with it, but we still love it's like all these white papers, which are very passionate and pure. And so I just started to be very much involved with the crypto art community in New York. So this is how I met you, Fanny, and everybody else. And then so we started with crypto art. Like I was involved with with a project about Pepe, which is the first ever art project, art on the blockchain, and many other things. But then like also going forward with time in New York, we were seeing that there was something missing. Meaning that like when I arrived in New York and I was telling people that I was coming from the art world, all these crypto people were looking at me like evil. But then I can see that things have been changing, because eventually we all got to a point where we think that we need curation and communication and to tell stories about crypto art and crypto artists who are always on the cloud and they don't manifest too often. So I got accepted, and this is how I started to curate digital art and crypto art. And then second level, the gallery. okay, but now like you are curating all these people, and you are, you know, it's like it's you are creating content. So maybe you can help the economy as well, because at the end of the day, I mean, artists have to live of their art, but that the way that we're trying to do it is, I am a little bit disappointed by the blockchain regarding this, because in fact, it didn't really change a lot about like the way of selling or anything. Meaning that, like, for instance, I have friends that tell me that they've never heard me talking so much about money since when I am into the blockchain art world. It's like, it's money, 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 it's auctions, it's even, so they actually miss content a lot, I think. And then we were like, okay, so why don't we try to get out a little bit of this constant, you know, like auction things, and also we try to bridge the physical and the digital, because eventually, and I think that COVID was very useful for this, to understand that we are not 100% digital. We are, this is like a sentence that I use for my gallery, meaning that we are containers of souls. So I see the soul as the digital and the container as our body, so the physical, but we still have, it's like, it's the way we face the world. And so I am trying to bridge the two worlds. So I work with many crypto artists, and we're like, okay, you know, it's, but as long as it's not a mere translation of just, you know, it could be just a print or anything to, I don't like translations. I like for it to come with something more. For instance, what we're doing with some artists who come from crypto, so they operate on the blockchain, which anyways I love, because I think the thing that I like most about the blockchain is that it provides this copyrights for artists. And I'm going to explain why I want to use this. So for instance, with Hakatao or Giants One. So Hakatao, they make these canvases, and you have like your AR that you scan the canvas through an app, and you have your AR animation, and then you also have like the canvas is sold together with the digital art, which is tokenized. Why? First of all, because Hakatao exists in both the worlds. And I am very tired of seeing collectors from the blockchain and collectors from the more traditional artwork is that they're collecting these Hakatao pieces, but nobody understands that maybe you should have both if you want to collect their art. And also because like, so they are inseparable on the primary market. So you have to collect the whole thing. But then like we give the possibility in the secondary market to detach the token, and you can sell it and play with it, because it's a big game, the blockchain. So you just play and have fun. And so the artist will get remunerated each time that the token is sold for 10%. And so like this, I also provide the artist with, okay, I'm gonna sell the token to someone with, you know, like eventually you will get remunerated with royalties. Otherwise this won't happen with a canvas.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, we can definitely, and we will go in more details on some of the pieces that you have in Breezy Art Gallery, because I think it also depends sometimes, like the relation is not obvious between I mean, it's not always the same between the physical object and the token, which makes things very interesting, but to teach people about both sides, and you were saying like, you know, like that you were accepted by, like, finally by the blockchain market, but really they should have welcomed you, you know, like, because you are actually translator, which is, in my opinion, the most important job, is that like you have people building amazing solutions, but that like currently still a niche of people like understand. And when you really spend time like we did understanding it, it's kind of when people say we're down like the blockchain rabbit hole. But it's really because we just understood it and spent time. You know, it's not an easy thing. Like I'm still not understanding half of it, like, to be honest. But this is where you use the narrative and this telling the story. And I encourage everybody to read your amazing descriptions of the works, because this is truly like a professional like art curator researching the narrative, the story behind the artist. And yeah, that I love about you know, like what you have like prepared. And just to keep like just a few more minutes on like how you prepared the show before we talk about the artists and more specifically the token and the objects. I think it would be very interesting, like, because it's you had planned an exhibition in Rome first, and then COVID-19 happened. So how did you manage to curate a show being in Italy, a lot of people being somewhere else, with COVID-19, the current like problems as well, like that artists are dealing with? Like how did it go?
Well, it was difficult, but it was a journey. I think that we got so much closer with artists, with everybody that we dealt with during this time. But it was very, so one of the main goals of my Breezy art project is to take digital art to physical spaces. And so, and to show it to normal people. So like I want for people to enjoy it. It's a new aesthetic, it's new topics, it's new thing. But and eventually like I would like to trick them, meaning that like for instance, in Rome, I picked this place, which is a sacred place, which I think that in Rome is where you want to go. So it's like, it's a cloister, like of a church. It's an amazing space. It's in the heart of Rome. And then of course, people here understand this aesthetic, and even if you hate digital art, you will go there because it's so beautiful. It's something that you understand. And then when you are there, I'm gonna put the digital art, so you're forced to see it. I'm sure that this is a good way to start to, just to get used, even in terms of aesthetic. But the first time that I was seeing the digital art, I didn't really like it because I didn't understand it, and now everything changed. So I was trying to do this, and I was like, okay, we can start in Rome since I am Italian. I am based I used to be based in New York. I don't know when I will be able to go back. But then we were supposed to start in Rome, and then COVID-19 happened, and it was, it was very difficult because you're dealing with artists. I mean, artists are creative people, and creativity doesn't just come like this, like you wake up and you are creative during a pandemic. So we went, but for me as well. And so we actually talked a lot about this, and we were seeing that the way our brain worked during pandemic during quarantine was that like the first 2 weeks, pretty much this amount of time, like your brain wouldn't work. It would be like all busy on understanding how to protect itself, to understand and process the fear, and to see news because you want to get informed, even if you are getting too much informed. And it was so interesting because the pandemic will move around the world, and we started with this in Italy. And so when I was talking about this and I was in a huge crisis, I was like, I cannot think. I have people in New York, like, how is it going? I see that you're on lockdown. What is this? But they're still productive, right? And then, and even like in terms of content, like by the time that the pandemic got into New York, and like it was in the middle of the thing here in Italy, for instance, we were talking about making art about like Renaissance instead of quarantine because we couldn't take it anymore. So it was difficult. The show was supposed to be titled Human Virus. Can you believe?
Oh my God.
Because it's about human condition, and so it would be like a virus. And this virus, I heard about this virus from China. It was like human virus. Anymore. So now we were like, okay, this is Renaissance 2020. And I also sent out a letter to my artists because I was like, this is so, like, what is the function of art? It's like, so like our doctors are working to find this vaccine for, our bodies, but maybe art should find the vaccine for our souls, which is so, it's not to be underestimated. Like I had my Chinese friend calling me from China. She was like, just make things that can make people happy, because otherwise the brain is not gonna work. And so you're even going to feel bad physically. But so interesting, like, and then I had to deal with, Giants One in Australia, Jason Young in New York, Hakatao here in Italy, and we were creating, I mean, they were creating, we were producing, and it was all different frames of the quarantine. It was difficult, but it was interesting.
And did you see your role as as curator, or like, you know, change in terms of like maybe you became more of a support as well, like, you know, for like these artists, and yes, fine, like during quarantine that's absolutely necessary, but is that like changing? I mean, we've talked a lot about like how galleries like in general need to adapt to kind of the new normal and being more supportive of artists. And I know you're not a traditional like art gallerist, but I'm wondering what you think your job should be, and maybe it's like also friend and psychiatrist, you know, like
Well, a little bit, babysitter, a little bit, but it's I mean, no, I think that we had like this bunch of people here talking, we had we were one step ahead from the traditional art galleries, because you know, when you are pioneering spaces, it's always very difficult, but it's like this COVID give a push of 10 years to digital art, and all of a sudden all these people who didn't even know how to turn on the computer were reaching out like, okay, we have to go digital, which is like, what does it mean? But besides this, we were already doing this, and we found ourselves to deal with native digital art. So not to just like translate things. Okay, how are we gonna sell this? How are we gonna do it? So we are coming from there, and so
yeah.
I think that this intuition that we already had was very helpful. I don't know if the role of the curators changed in general. Like me, it's just I'm going with the, you know, like with
Yeah.
what happened.
You're right, and it's more of a question of like, you know, we don't have a crystal ball, and we haven't seen actually all the effects. This is something that we were discussing earlier with in a different panel. It's like we went from like fully digital, fully physical to fully online, and like what is a hybrid gonna look like? I think this is a question for later. Let's just focus on the silver lining of the now. I think this is yeah, I think it's time to show my screen and share your gallery. So exciting. Okay, share my screen. All right, share my screen. Perfect. All right. Oh, we're actually like looking at each other on CADAF TV. This is so weird. Oh my God. The live, like, you know, anyway. Okay, so I'm gonna show, so see, like you can find Eleonora by either typing here, Breezy Art, with 6 people in your booth right now. You can also like go around and poke around and click on here, or find her in the booth list. That was my guide mom minute. So this is the main piece which I so want, but like I can't afford it. So but I do want to hear more about it. I mean, I read about it, like, but not everybody has, and everybody should hear it from you. I hope people will go to your, I mean, we'll go through the this one just to see the because you documented as a gallerist as live painting of this work, which was amazing to see Nadia and Sergio painting this this work.
Yeah, it was a journey for me as well, like always getting surprise photos every day. So Hakatao, I mean, for those who don't know them, it is an artist duo. They have a very specific and recognizable style, and yes, it's a duo. So Nadia takes care of the flat, colorful pop part, and Sergio takes care of the detail drawing part. As I was saying, like their art is very complete, meaning that they don't really care about what means to use, whatever they wish to use. So they paint, they draw, they are as a painter and like a drawer, but then like they use digital, they use, you know, they do digital animations, they use VR, they use everything they think that it's good for their art pieces, which I like. For this one, so this this is the main piece of the Renaissance 2020. It's inspired by the title of the show, but the show is inspired by this historical time. So I guess this is really, what I said, this is the piece that we need. We need the Renaissance. And so we were talking to them and discussing with them, and we were like, you know, we don't want to talk about the pandemic anymore because we already worked about something together, like this little character that was seeing people getting sick and sad. So we already processed that part, and we were like, okay, we're going for a Renaissance. What is a Renaissance right now? It's not Botticelli anymore. It's new thing. It's like, it's new, you know. At the time when the piece was completed, nothing happened in the US yet about the social rights for Black Lives Matter. But still, it was there. It's like, it's change, it's a rebirth, it's everything that you can imagine after this pandemic. And so the name is Imago, 2K2AC, which is Imago 2020 after Christ, after COVID. And yeah, and so the imago is the last stage of the insect before it comes out and goes to live its life. So this is what you see here, chrysalid. And yes, it was, I love her expression because it's like, she's supposed to look like a Venus, but she's actually a warrior. She's both. She's ready to get her life back. That's the piece. And then so it's a canvas, and then they animated in AR that you can scan through the canvas, and yeah, some music. And then there's also the digital art, which is the GIF tokenized on the blockchain. And we should thank Infi NFT, because they tokenize also the metadata on the blockchain. So everything is on chain here for one of the first times. Never say the first time, because you never know, but it's one of the first times that all the data are on chain. Yeah, so let's say that, like, in this journey that we did together with the artist, Hakatao is more on the side of the Renaissance. While if you look at the other artists, for instance, like Jason Young, he's more on the side of, like, he basically documented the whole quarantine time in New York. But if you go up where Giants One is, yeah, so Giants One was also a big discovery for me this year. I think that in many ways, like, even if artists don't talk about quarantine, COVID, or Renaissance like directly, they're all very connected, especially those who created during this time. This series of 5 pieces by Giants One was created during quarantine. Again, he's in Australia, so the situation wasn't that bad as we were here, but like, it still has difficult to, you know, like, to get to the studio because all the studios are closed. And so he has some problems in terms of production. Giants One, he's a sculptor. He sculpts in VR. So he sculpts with VR headset and joysticks. This is how he makes sculptures. And I think one of the most interesting things about his art is that you might think that it's very digital, like, okay, it's in VR, it's in virtual reality, but it's not. It's so physical because he sculpts with the movement of the body. And so all these perfect images that you see are like all the result of the imperfection of the movement of our bodies. And so we even had a discussion when I had to produce the prints, because I went to produce the prints for Sofia Crespo and Giants One, and I was like, Sofia, you know, like, she's very romantic, I say, in the sense of romanticism, like, in that sense. But Giants One, I was like, you know, like, he's very native of the digital. So for Sofia, I chose a paper which is 100% cotton. It looks like it's a painting. It's like it's velvet. But then for Giants One, I was like, you know, it's boring, like, it's digital. I will go for a white paper that I wasn't happy about. So I redid all the prints in the end. Yes, because you have to, like, you have to think about this. Giants One was like, no, I am not digital. Like, I am not that digital. I am so physical. Like, I sculpt with my body. And so it is very romantic. And so finally I got this paper for him as well.
But he was just very jealous of Sophia, let's just be honest.
Maybe, because they look better.
Quick question on this one. So he creates in VR, like so the print, can you also see the work in VR, like for example, for VR collectors?
Okay, so in VR, you cannot see it. This is one big thing about VR. It's not shareable. But we are working to, so you have the digital piece, which is the 3D. It's like the digital painting that comes from what is called in VR with a token and everything. But what we are trying to do is to feel this, exactly, this is the perfect question. Because it's like, okay, my art is in this worlds that you go inside and it's so beautiful because sometimes he takes video. Here you can see how he sculpts if you show this video. If he takes video of inside the world, you can see all, like from all corners, you can see it's an actual person, right? And so I cannot reveal what we're going to do, but we're going to create an art piece, which you know, like provides you with the shared experience, which is a physical art piece, and the intimate experience that eventually you will go with your thing and it's for yourself. But we want to provide both. Yeah, this is how it cuts. Yeah, so yeah, Giants one, I mean, like all these pieces, they even weren't supposed to be a part of a series, but again, like you create during a certain period of time and all together, so they are a series. Like you can see, they are very connected, and his art is very, very personal, so it doesn't really like to talk about it because it's too intimate. And also, like, he likes to trick people, like putting, you know, like spiritual animals and see if people think that it's a cute thing or they understand if it's like the symbol of wisdom or but I think that what he has, Giants one, is that, I mean, when art is art, it's when it starts from personal and it spreads so much to include everybody, that becomes universal. And this, I think that this is what it does. It is personal, but it's really universal. So
yeah, I think this is a good point, that it's like when you try to reach everybody, you reach nobody, right? Like, I mean, is it like the most personal works that are the most you know, touching and that you remember, because, you know, if it touches and means something to him, it might mean something to someone else. If you're just doing something for everybody, I think this is like even more for digital art, because every time we talk about like a digital event as well, or like that you put it on a website, you think, oh, it's gonna be like people I don't know is gonna like care about these things in like Sri Lanka, and you're like, no, nobody's really gonna care, like if you don't explain like where it comes from and why it means something. So
yeah. And so, well, yeah, it talks about it talks about the human condition, right? This is why it gets to everybody.
You tell me if I go next.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you can.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, can you show the triangle first? I think that you have it next. Yeah. So this is Jesu Jung, the artist I was talking about earlier. I think that with Jesu Jung, it was the biggest journey, meaning that it was so difficult to work with, not with him, I mean, with people in New York. But I was in Italy and it was in New York. Everything was you know, it was late. It was like 2-3 weeks late from me. And so we were always with these emotions up and down, constantly, like specular. But then, as usual, Jason, you know, like you never know what he's working on because he's not very clear about that. I was like, dude, I have to trust you with this. Just give me some directions. But then in the end, it was calls almost every day. So I know that, because, you know, it's for the sanity of the artist. I know that I just want for him to feel comfortable because it was very difficult times. And then he came up with this triangle. So Jason is generative light paintings artist and light sculptures. So it means that it's coded in Arduino, so the patterns never repeat. It's not just an LED. In fact, the code is the art. and what happened is that we quarantined in New York. He couldn't go to his studio anymore, and he had to stay, as many people do in New York, in just a room. And then he was in his room. He just took some material from, because like last time in CADAF in Miami, we showed the light box. That was such a
it was very different style. Huh?
Structure, but this time it was like, okay, I'm here. This is what I have. And so, like there is a beautiful statement that I suggest to read because it's very moving, and it takes you through all the path, like from the triangle to the temple. But briefly, he was like, okay, I have to create with this, and I want to create because it's 24 hours in my room. And so it came up with, I have photos of many shapes, and finally it was like, it's the triangle. Why it's the triangle? It's simple. It's the strongest figure, like in nature. It's the symbol of a delta. It's very strong. It's like, it's simple, but it's solid. And this is what you needed in that time, like something sustaining you. And then, okay, so it was creating these triangles, and then like maybe 2-3 weeks passed, maybe 1 month, and then it was like, okay, I have triangles. Show me the triangles. I loved it. It was like looking at the wall for hours and hours, playing with the triangle. And he said that he was playing with the void. I mean, Jason has a very philosophical take. He reads a lot of Chinese books, like the I Ching. And it like really plays with light. It was like, I finally understood that the darkness was coming back, but the light was coming back, so that it's a circle, it's all connected. It was fixing the void. And also, it doesn't code if it doesn't come to him. Like, it took so much for me to understand his process, because it's not that he uses code to fix things, but it's more of a like sitting there, and when things manifest to you, then you will help with your tools. So this is how the triangle came up. It's like meditation of hours and hours in front of the wall. And then at a certain point, when he said that when the murder of George Floyd happened in New York, then it was like everything started to change, as if we had to wait for that thing to happen. But eventually this is how it happened. And it was like, so things started to get pushed in New York, because then if there is one thing good about New York is that change is really possible. And so it was like, I felt uncomfortable, like, sticking with the triangle, because I had to push it too. This is time for, it's a new era. It's like, as I said, for the Akatao RPs, it's like the new year 0. So he split and he opened the triangle and he started to play. And eventually it became these temples. So the temples are the sculptures of, I wouldn't say of Renaissance, because Jason didn't get to Renaissance with his art during this time. He's still in a better place, but he didn't get there. While Hakata was like, we want to talk about later, like we want to see further. And this is
it's very interesting to see the different reactions of the artist with the current events, and for me, like, that's the whole relevance of the art in such a time of crisis. It helped people go through this overload of news, as you said before, with a different view, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, and then he came up with this, and there's also another profound consideration. It was like, I split the triangle, but the light still manifests in triangles. So everything is very connected. These are the pieces of the pushing, the social change, the going back to, I would say, to this life. And it really is like, I have been following this process. So if you ask me like galleries or curator, I was following the process and I loved it. And I am happy that he got, like, I just felt that he wasn't satisfied until the day he called me and it was like, I got it. I have the temples. And what do you have? Don't we have triangles? It was like, I opened it. I opened the triangles. I was like, I didn't see just this. And then I think that the cool thing is that at that point, it couldn't even look at triangles anymore. It couldn't produce more, that was it. It was not on the triangles anymore. It will be only on new things.
It's oh, sorry, I lost you your visual. No, it's very interesting also, like the reaction that some artists really could not create anymore, and some became more prolific to like actually evacuate. It's like, I mean, it's very human, right? We all have like different reactions to the current like events, and but I think it's a very the short, like, it's we need to document that, I feel like, for the future. Like, it's like this, there were a few projects called Archive COVID, and it was to document history as it happens. And for me, this is also the role of the artists as well, to say like this work was created in this context. In this context, I could not make any work. So like there will be a blank between, like the beginning and the end of quarantine. I think this is kind of where it helps not to forget, and it's fascinating to, and again, like we're talking about something really bad, like like the Black Lives Matter and like the murders and the virus, but it's also like we need to step back a little bit, and that's what the artists are really able to do, and think about what's happening as it happens.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm so lucky to see what's happening through art pieces. It was like looking at an art book, like pre-war, during war, and after war. You can see the change. It's crazy, like the changing of the creation during the three phases. It was I don't know, it was fascinating. So I'm happy that we document this with the show in Rome. We have a catalog. I want artists already wrote a lot. I was like, well, you have to document your feelings in this time. I don't care if you don't produce, but I want it in the catalog.
Yeah. So did you keep the title, Human Virus?
No, Renaissance 2020.
Okay. I was not sure if it was for Hakatao or like, I don't know, I mean.
No. Yeah, and then if you go ahead, and then we have Dada. Yeah. Okay, Dada. Well, for those who don't know Dada, I think very few, or at least it should be very few. Well, Dada, this wasn't produced during COVID or anything like this, but it doesn't matter, because like it's one of the pieces that it's most connected with like the human nature. I am interested in human nature and human condition more for this show. This is why it was supposed to be called Human Virus, like the human condition. And Dada was just, I have been knowing them and for maybe 1.5 years, almost 2 years now. It was probably my most favorite platform from day one, because it's, obviously it's not the only function that art has, but what else do you want from art? It's like, for me, it's a representation of it's collaboration. So it's like collaborative art, it's a dialogue. So Dada is this platform, digital art, where artists just log in and they make drawings and they answer to each other. And it's like you have the same tools available to create, and you eventually have to answer to someone. You can just go there and create by yourself, right? So it's a dialogue. So I was always very, very, very fascinated by Dada. Also, they have been pioneering the space since forever. Dada wasn't born on the blockchain. They were born as an art platform, and then later the blockchain came to them. So they're not like too extreme about it. They used it as a tool, and now they are pioneering something else, which is this white paper that they wrote about. We had discussions about this. I was like, "Are you sure about what you're writing?" But that they explain, and it's amazing. It's called The Invisible Economy. I don't want to, like, there are you can find it online. There are pages and pages about this. But like, they want to detach the art market from art, which you might think that it's impossible. But basically, briefly, they saw that if an artist doesn't have the pressure of earning money, it actually makes better art. I think that I am presenting this in the right way. And there are
I mean, there's like it's invisible economy is we at there was another conference last weekend called Radical Exchange, and they presented it there. We're both involved in that foundation, and we had workshops. I mean, it's a whole new way of thinking about art value and art creation, and it's quite controversial. So it's something to look up, but it's we'll do like actually like a happy hour or something on that, because I think we need way more like, you know, discussions around it.
Yeah, please do. They are, and only
Yeah.
them can explain. We are still like reading and asking questions. For this project that we are presenting here, which is called Solving the Machine, I think it's one of the few times, or maybe the first time, that Dada also have a physical component in their art. And again, the way that they did physical, that just didn't go to print, it's very interactive and passionate and human. Like I always call the Dada art human. So what they did is, the digital drawings collection is made by 19 artists. So it's a conversation, how they call it. It's a conversation of 19 artists. And then these 19 artists were asked to send to Judy and Bear, who are the founders of the co-founders of Dada, to send like an object or something which is very important for that, which for them is like a momentum. And it was such a cool experiment, because they, you know, like so many paradoxes, like for instance, like it's so much easier and quicker for an artist from Mexico and the other one and like in Italy to talk to each other through drawings and communicate than to send a little box from post office, which is horrible. So like if you read the text, there's so many.
Look at that. Simon in Kenya had to drive 3 hours and back to his nearest DHL office.
Yeah, and yeah, so many stories. So like all of these little boxes that got to eventually New York are so like fragmented of like history, right? And so they composed this beautiful box that includes all these very important objects from each artist. And it is connected to the digital conversation. Well, I think that this piece by Dada is amazing. As usual, they are always experimenting. And to experiment with people from all over the world is very difficult, but it was another of their many adventure.
Yeah, and they do have actually another booth presenting their new social project called No Justice, No Peace, separately, like in CADAF, and I think this is where, yeah, they're very involved in the artist community, in the, you know, like activism, and by now, like I think everybody understood that this is my favorite part. It's like the social impact of artists, but very personal. I'm not speaking for CADAF, I'm speaking for myself. But no, this is truly interesting, and this is where, like, see, like Eleonora, like this is where like the story behind these digital works is the most important, and it's hard to like tell this story online. I mean, you know, like we tried like recording like things, but we need to tell these stories over and over and over again. And you mentioned that blockchain did not really change like how you sell works, but I think it helped a little bit more, like putting back the artist and the curator in the middle. And we're not there yet, but going into that direction to be able to tell that story, because this is something that we absolutely need to, like, to you know, understand not just the technology. Even if you don't understand the technology, who cares? But it's like, it's really the story behind it.
Yeah,
we don't. Anyway,
we're fed up with the technology. It's just, let's leave the technology to technologists.
Exactly.
I mean,
and that's their role, to like actually make it like easy to consume and enjoy. And there are, it's still very early. We still have a lot of work to do, like, you know, in terms of like the physical object that you can actually bring home. If it's a video in a frame with infinite objects, we're doing a great job, like, or just a token in your wallet. Like it's a lot of different things to understand. I mean, it's a lot, but
yeah, it's a lot. I think that as long as we understand that we shouldn't be too extreme from one side or one other, I know that it might sound like, yeah, what, but it is, because I am not convinced anymore that we will ever get to a point where we don't need physical anymore, because we are physical. So just live with that and play with both, I think.
Yeah, one doesn't have to fight the other. I think this is always like the conclusion.
Yeah.
All right. We're, I'm just want to say, like, we have a little bit over 10 minutes left. So I just want to make sure we get to the other stories, because it's like my bedtime stories. It's great.
Then we have Sophia, I think. It's okay. We have the, yeah. Sophia. So briefly, Sophia, well, amazing artist. I like her a lot. I think besides all the technology that she uses, like neural networks, so Sophia creates this fantastic, meaning of fantasy worlds where your eyes is tricked, but your brain keeps you on the right way. So meaning that, like, so she feeds the machine, obviously, as you know, like working with neural networks with with like material images and anything. She works with technology and biology, so everything is around nature. This is why I was talking about the paper that I picked for her, because I think that it's so like romantic in this sense. And then like you get to her, you know, like to her works, and you're like, you know, like this is something that so what actually your eyes tell you, like, okay, I recognize this, but maybe, I don't know, you can think that it's a jellyfish, I don't know, or anything. But then your brain like suddenly tells you that no, so what you're seeing here does not belong to any of the realities which are real. But then the question is, but if it's like your eyes are connected to your brain, I am so fascinated by this, because I'm like, your eyes are connected to your brain. So what does it mean that the brain recognizes that it's not real, but your eyes, you know, they can like recognize something that they have seen in the past? So where is the truth? Where is reality? And so I am so fascinated. So she's using technology to, she's like, can we create new natural worlds with technology? Is it possible? And also studying, she has a little bit of this in common with Bensnell, meaning that they don't take like technology, they don't trying to humanize technology, but it's more about like studying human bodies and human characters and personalities from a computational point of view. Like Sophia even, so she can even see that we have so many things in common, even like that we work as technological like species or objects. And it's very fascinating when they flip the thing, because then you're like, and again, I think that they are part of this show of this Renaissance 2020, because like their perspective to, we understood that we need to change something and we need something new, and we are going towards something new. And so all these certitudes that we used to have, we don't have them anymore. And so it's just like very amazing to see how we can actually think from this other point of view.
Yeah, and her process, I mean, we don't have time to go into her process, but I'll try to share. There was a talk with her and Jason Bailey in Miami when she was exhibited there, which really goes into the different types of GAN and generative technology that she's using, and the link with biology. I think it's quite fascinating. And
it is. I really love her work.
Yeah. All right. Should I go? Blank page. Oh.
I think that you have the Jade Project. Yeah. So this is an experiment. This is more on the like talking more about actually like the continuum of art, which I think it's connected to humans as well. We were like, do objects have a soul? Like, do they, because there are some magic objects, as it is the jade for Chinese people. The jade for Chinese people is just a stone or like jewels. It has so many meanings. It's the stone that they used to put, you know, like on the head of dead people, so the soul can go through. There are so many meanings, but that these objects are just shown in museums and you don't enjoy them anymore because it's just this, oh, I have here. This is 3,000 years old. It's the one that was shown in Miami, which I didn't give to my professor back. Like I have the excuse of the COVID-19, so it's here still. So it's like, we try to find a way to actually, like, as I said, like to do a show about the jades without the jades. So all these artists together, contemporary artists, they studied the jades from different perspectives, and they went into the soul, the texture of the jade, and produced digital art pieces for the first CADAF in New York. And so it was like, okay, so is it digital art? Because it comes from an object even. So is it digital? Is it physical? It's art, right? So, and it has, and objects can speak about something. And this piece that we have here, the artist went back to physical from digital. So she produced 3 digital paintings about the soul and, you know, the heart of the jades. And then she went back and she used laser cuts on paper and on golden foil to like reproduce what she produced in digital. And it's just a huge experiment to prove that it doesn't matter if you go here or you go there. It's just it's one thing.
I hope you continue that project on the jade, because it's quite interesting. Like, because it can be, jade means really different things to different cultures, right? Like it has like a very important meaning in Asia, but it's also like, for me, it's more of a color, you know, like I see the blue, like light blue, and I'm like, oh, this is a jade blue, or green for some people even. So it's kind of like, what does it mean, like, to reproduce jade technologically as well?
Yeah,
you know, after, like,
we try to, yeah, that's why we were trying to, it's really like, you know, for us it was jade because we all studied Chinese art and Asian art, but it could be anything. It's like, okay, so let's study the characteristics as if it was like a person of this object.
Very interesting.
They made some music with jades. They are dance. Okay, so this.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you. I just wanted to load it.
Yeah. Because otherwise we don't have time anymore. So this is the last artist of the booth. I very much like him. I was so fascinated by him. We were together with him, Fanny, when I had the conference about
an art talk.
Intelligence and art, yes. And as I was saying when I was talking about Sophia, like Ben really puts himself, you know, like, okay, so are we trying to make these robots human, which it's not trying to do that. It really believes that there is something about them, but we are also computational beings. So let's try to see the similarities instead of like splitting and trying to be, I want to be this and this to make them be the opposite. In this series of drawings that you see here, this is part of, he used different robots, and it's called G53. It's like his process with robots is so romantic. So G53 means home in the language of robots. And so he puts the, you know, like the home in the middle. You have the video here, yeah, how he makes it. And he asks the robot to draw a spiral. I mean, he asks the robot to go home. And so the robot starts to draw until he gets home. But then what he can see is that although they're robots, and even if he uses the same robots for a series, the results are different. And so it's what he calls the fingerprints of the robot. Yeah, it's like and also like Ben, you can never compare to the way he talks about his art, because he's one of, not all the artists can do that, but when you listen to Ben talking about the artist, like he's the best one. And so you have this beautiful, this is handmade paper. It really studies like the character, the personality of these machines. And it says, you know, like just trying to find a home for them in our world. We also have some sculptures. No, it's okay, Fanny. We also have some.
Sorry.
Sculptures.
Yeah. The sculptures are also very. But leave some surprise. Leave some surprise. Tell people to go check out the sculpture. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Like I just want to have time to wrap up with you before time is up, because we have another talk coming up at with her visions at 3 p.m. ED or 9 p.m. CET. I don't even know the time zones anymore. But no, thank you. I think this is really the essence of what we're trying to do is again tell the narrative, the storytelling. And I hate when that storytelling has such a marketing connotation, because it's really what people need still. And as you said, we're not just total robots, like, you know, like we're still like people who like to be told stories, and this is the oldest way to really, like, you know, transfer stories and knowledge. So I'm very glad we got the time to talk about these artists and these booths, and I'm sure you'll be around this weekend and after to tell us more stories. So I don't know if you have something to conclude.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and you're all invited to come to Rome in September.
So it's planned for September for now.
It's planned for September if everything goes well, which we
we don't know. We don't know. We'll find a way otherwise. All right, we always do, right?
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eleonora. All right, bye.